The council chamber on Space Station Apex 7 was the largest room had ever seen. The circular hall stretched 50 meters across, with seats rising in rings like an ancient amphitheater. Representatives from 200 alien species sat in those seats, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. Some breathed oxygen like humans. Others sat in special tanks filled with methane or ammonia. A few were pure energy, contained in glowing spheres. Stood at the center of the chamber floor, his dark blue uniform marking him as Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. Those eyes had seen many negotiations over his 20 years in this job, but today felt different. Today felt dangerous. Across from him stood the war prime of the Empire, was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with 4 arms and skin that looked like purple stone. His species had conquered 40 star systems in the past century. They were known for their military strength and their pride. The evidence is clear, his voice boomed through the chamber. His translator device made his words sound cold and mechanical. A human vessel destroyed one of our scout ships in the neutral zone. 23 soldiers died. This is an act of war. Took a deep breath. Honored council members, this was an accident. Our mining ship had a navigation failure. The crew tried to avoid collision, but their systems were offline. We have offered full compensation to the families of the crew. We have offered to pay for a new scout ship. We deeply regret this tragedy. Regret, laughed a harsh sound like grinding rocks. Humans speak of regret while they spread across our borders like a disease. You have colonies on 70 worlds now. Your ships fill the trade routes. You grow too bold too fast. A council elder, a being made of crystalline structures that reflected light in rainbow patterns, spoke in a musical tone. Ambassador, how many military vessels does Earth command? 200 warships, Elder answered honestly. We maintain a defensive fleet only. We have no interest in conquest. His laugh grew louder. 200 ships. The Empire commands 50,000 warships. 50,000, and you dare to occupy space that should be ours. Felt his jaw tighten. He had expected aggression, but not this level of hostility. The colonies we established were in unclaimed space, War Prime. We followed all Galactic Council laws. We have broken no rules. You broke our scout ship, shot back. And for this crime, Earth must pay. We demand 3 of your colony worlds. The planets you call New Sol and Base. You will evacuate them within 30 days. The worlds will become territory. The chamber erupted in noise. Dozens of species began speaking at once, some in support of, others questioning his demands. Stood frozen, unable to believe what he was hearing. Those 3 colonies held nearly 5 million human civilians, families, children, scientists and farmers and teachers. That is impossible, said, his voice cutting through the noise. We cannot abandon 5 million people. We will not. His 4 arms spread wide. Then the Empire declares war on humanity. We will take those worlds by force, and when we are finished, Earth itself will kneel before us. The chamber went silent. Looked around at the council members. Some appeared shocked. Others looked away, unwilling to meet his eyes. The crystalline elder dimmed its light, which knew meant sadness or disapproval. War Prime, the elder said softly, this seems excessive for an accident. Perhaps more discussion. Discussion is over, interrupted. Humanity has 1 week to evacuate those colonies. After that, our fleets will move. If any human ship resists, it will be destroyed. If Earth sends its tiny fleet of 200 ships to fight, they will be crushed like insects. The Council will see that the Empire does not tolerate aggression, accidental or not. Turned and walked out of the chamber, his heavy footsteps echoing. Half the council members left with him, species that were allied with the Empire or feared them too much to object. Remained standing in the center of the empty floor. His hands were shaking, not from fear but from anger. His communicator buzzed. He tapped it. "Ambassador, this is Earth Command," a familiar voice said. "Marshal Sung, the head of Earth's military forces. We watched the broadcast. Get back to Earth immediately. We need to talk." 6 hours later, sat in a secure conference room deep beneath Earth's Defense Command in Geneva. Marshal Sung sat across from him, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and short black hair. Next to her was the Director of Intelligence, younger but equally intense. "They're serious about this," said, exhaustion heavy in his voice. "Wants war. I think he was looking for any excuse." "He was," confirmed. She pulled up a holographic display showing fleet movements. "Our spies report that warships have been gathering for 3 months. They positioned fleets near our colonies before the accident ever happened. This was planned." Sung leaned back in her chair. "So they want a war, and they think they'll win easily because we only have 200 warships." "We do only have 200 warships," pointed out. Sung smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. 200 warships that the public knows about, that the Galactic Council knows about, that the know about. His eyes widened. "What are you saying?" Brought up another display. This one showed shipyards hidden in asteroid belts, construction facilities buried inside moons, and factories floating in the dark spaces between stars. Hundreds of them. "Ambassador said quietly, humanity learned a long time ago that peace is good, but being prepared for war is better. For 50 years since we first met alien species, we've been building, quietly, secretly. We learned about the early on. We knew species like them existed, so we prepared." "How many ships?" whispered. "Right now, about 3,000 fully operational," Sung answered. "And we can build 5,000 more in 3 months if we push production, all using technology they have never seen, stealth systems, weapons designed specifically to counter their tactics. We've studied every battle they've ever fought. We know their weaknesses." Sat back trying to process this. "You've been planning for this." "We've been planning for any species that might attack us," Sung corrected. "They evolved on a peaceful world. They conquered other species through overwhelming numbers. Their ships are big and slow. Their tactics are basic. They've never fought a species that developed through constant warfare." Nodded. "Humans spent 10,000 years fighting each other. We perfected war. Every strategy, every dirty trick, every last-ditch desperate gamble. They think we're primitive because we only recently reached the stars. They don't understand what kind of species survives that long in a state of constant conflict." "So what do we do?" asked. Marshal Sung's smile grew wider. "We give them their war, and we show them why declaring war on humans requires more than numbers. It requires fortune, and their fortune just ran out." Outside, in the shipyards hidden across human space, construction crews received their orders. Lights flickered on in facilities that had been dark for years, waiting for this moment. Engineers and soldiers prepared for a war that everyone except the new was about to turn very differently than expected. In his flagship orbiting the War Prime celebrated his victory. In 1 week, he would crush the weak humans and claim their colonies. His name would be remembered forever as the conqueror of Earth. He had no idea that fortune was already turning against him. The fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the system like a swarm of metal locusts. 5,000 warships, each one larger than any human vessel. Their hulls were dark purple, covered in weapon ports and armor plating. To the commanders, this was not a battle. It was an extermination. Fleet Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship, a massive dreadnought called the Crushing Fist. He looked at his tactical display with satisfaction. The humans had only 20 destroyers protecting the colony world below, 20 ships against 5,000. The battle would be over in an hour. "All ships advance formation," ordered. His fleet moved forward in a rigid line exactly as military doctrine demanded. Perfect spacing, perfect alignment, beautiful and unstoppable. On the human destroyer Soul's Pride, Captain watched the fleet approach. His ship was small, barely 200 meters long. The flagship was 3 kilometers. The size difference was terrifying. His crew of 80 humans looked at him, waiting for orders. His communicator crackled. "All ships, this is Earth Command," Marshal Sung's voice came through. "Engage the enemy. Make them pay for every meter of space. Show them what it costs to attack humans. Make them remember this day." Took a deep breath. He knew what those orders meant. Earth Command wasn't sending reinforcements. The 20 destroyers here were going to die, but they would die fighting, and they would take as many with them as possible. "All crew battle stations," announced. "Load all weapons, prepare emergency thrust, and somebody play some music. If we're going to die, let's die to a good beat." The bridge crew actually laughed. Nervous laughter, but real. Someone started playing old Earth rock music over the ship's speakers. The heavy drums and guitars filled the corridors. "Sir, they are hailing us," the communications officer said. "Put them on," ordered. Fleet Commander's face appeared on the screen. "Human vessel, you are ordered to surrender immediately. Power down your weapons and evacuate to the planet's surface. Resistance is futile." Smiled. "Fleet Commander, I have a counteroffer. Turn your ships around and leave this system. Last chance." His expression showed confusion, then anger. "You have 20 ships. I have 5,000. You cannot win." "Winning isn't the point," replied. "The point is making you wish you'd never come here." Souls cried out. He cut the transmission. "All ships attack pattern Crazy Ivan. Random vectors, random targets, make them chase ghosts." The human destroyers suddenly scattered in 20 different directions. They didn't move in formation. They didn't coordinate. Each ship acted independently, using maximum thrust to dodge and weave through space like fighters instead of warships. The fleet tried to target them, but the humans moved too unpredictably. Ships were built for straightforward combat, with weapons designed to hit large, slow targets. The human destroyers were small and impossibly fast. His destroyer dove toward an asteroid field. 3 cruisers followed him. He flew into the asteroids, weaving between rocks at speeds that made his crew grip their seats. The ships tried to follow but were too large. One collided with an asteroid and exploded. The other 2 broke off pursuit. "Fire missiles," ordered. Soul's Pride launched a spread of missiles that curved around asteroids and struck a cruiser from behind. The missiles were small, but they were precise. They hit the cruiser's engine core. The ship exploded in a flash of blue light. Across the battlefield, the other human destroyers were doing the same thing. They used asteroids as cover. They attacked from unexpected angles. They hit and ran, never staying still long enough to be caught. Pilot flew a small fighter called a Falcon. Fighters weren't supposed to work in space battles. They were too small, too fragile. But humans had modified them anyway, adding powerful engines and suicide weapons. Led a squadron of 12 Falcons toward a battleship. The massive ship tried to shoot them down, but the Falcons were too fast. They split up, coming at the battleship from 6 different directions. "Target their bridge," ordered. "All power to forward shields on my mark." The 12 Falcons dove at the battleship at full thrust. They realized too late what was happening. The fighters weren't trying to shoot the battleship. They were ramming it. The experimental shields on the Falcons held just long enough. 11 of the 12 fighters punched through the battleship's armor like bullets. They struck the bridge section and detonated their payloads. The battleship's front half exploded. The ship broke in two, both pieces spinning away dead in space. Fighter survived, barely. Her shields were gone, her hull was cracked, but her engine still worked. Falcon Squadron, anyone alive? 3 other pilots responded. Only 4 survivors out of 12, but they destroyed a battleship. "Reform on me," said. "Let's find another target." Fleet Commander watched his tactical display with growing horror. The humans were fighting like. They showed no fear. They used tactics that made no military sense. ships diving into asteroid fields, fighters ramming battleships, destroyers deliberately drawing fire to let other ships escape. All ships tighten formation, ordered. We need to concentrate fire. But concentrating fire meant moving closer together, and the humans were waiting for that. When the ships bunched up, Captain saw his opportunity. All remaining ships converge on Sector 7, he ordered, ramming speed. 6 human destroyers, all that remained of the 20, turned toward the concentrated formation. They fired every weapon they had while charging directly at the enemy. Crews panicked. Ships that size weren't supposed to act like missiles, but the humans didn't care about supposed to. They cared about making the pay. 3 destroyers were destroyed before they reached the lines, but 3 made it through. Soul's Pride crashed into a carrier, both ships exploding in a ball of nuclear fire. The other 2 destroyers took out a battleship and 3 cruisers before they died. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, all 20 human destroyers were gone. All their crews were dead. The colony below was undefended. But the fleet had lost 800 ships, 800 out of 5,000. Nearly 1/6 of their force destroyed by an enemy that was outnumbered 250 to 1. Fleet commander stared at the debris field around his fleet. Bodies and wreckage floated everywhere. The survivors were traumatized. Some of his captains were already demanding to return home. Contact War Prime said quietly, tell him we won. But tell him the humans fight like demons. Tell him this isn't going to be easy." On Earth's hidden moon base, Admiral Jin watched the battle reports with grim satisfaction. The base was built inside Earth's moon, a massive facility that had taken 30 years to construct. From here, Jin commanded humanity's secret fleet. 20 ships held off 5,000 for 6 hours, Jin said to his officers, and killed 800. They are learning their first lesson: humans don't surrender. Engineer stood beside him, reviewing production schedules. "Sir, we can have the Ghost Fleet ready in 3 months. 5,000 ships, all armed with weapons they have never seen." 3 months, Jin repeated. "They will reach Earth in 3 months if they keep advancing. We need to slow them down. Order all colony defenses to do what did. Make the bleed for every planet." "They'll lose every battle," one officer pointed out. "But they'll win the war," Jin replied. "Every ship they lose now is one less ship attacking Earth. Every day we buy is another day to build more vessels. They think they're winning. They don't understand that they're walking into a trap." Around the moon base, massive shipyards came to life. Thousands of workers began assembling vessels unlike anything the galaxy had seen. These weren't just warships. They were specifically designed to kill. Every weapon, every system, every tactical program was built around defeating the Empire. They thought they were hunting weak prey. They didn't realize the prey was leading them into an ambush. They didn't understand that fortune had already turned against them. And they wouldn't understand until it was far too late. The war had been raging for 2 months. Fleets advanced on 6 human colonies at once, expecting each battle to be quick and easy. Instead, they found nightmares. At New Colony, Commander commanded a defense fleet of 30 ships against a force of 4,000. His ships were outnumbered, but had studied Earth's old naval battles from the age of submarines and destroyers. He knew that being unpredictable was more valuable than being powerful. "All ships, execute Crazy Ivan Pattern Delta," ordered. The human ships suddenly reversed course without warning. They spun in place, fired all weapons at once, then scattered in random directions. The ships, advancing in their perfect military formations, couldn't react fast enough. By the time their targeting systems locked on, the human ships were gone, attacking from new angles. Flagship dove under the formation. Most species thought of space as 2-dimensional, with ships attacking on the same plane. Humans thought 3. They came up behind the rear guard and launched missiles at point-blank range. 8 cruisers exploded before they even knew they were under attack. Scatter protocol ordered, every ship for themselves, make them chase you. The human fleet broke apart. Each captain began improvising their own tactics. One ship hid in the shadow of the colony's moon, waiting to ambush passing. Another deliberately showed damage, appearing to limp away, then turned and fired when ships came close to finish it off. They didn't know how to handle an enemy that refused to follow military doctrine. Their commanders sent increasingly frustrated messages to each other, demanding to know why the humans wouldn't fight properly. In space above the colony, Pilot flew her modified Falcon fighter through the chaos. She had become known as the Ghost because of her ability to disappear from sensors and reappear where enemies least expected. Had learned tricks that no military academy taught. She flew close to large pieces of debris, using them to hide her small fighter's heat signature. She shut down all non-essential systems, making her ship look like floating wreckage. Then she waited. A destroyer passed within 100 meters, its crew completely unaware of her presence. Powered up her systems and launched a spread of missiles directly into the destroyer's engine section. The ship exploded and was already gone, vanishing back into the debris field. "Ghost, this is," Commander's voice came through her communicator. "We're pulling back to the colony. Cover our retreat." "Understood," replied. "I'll keep them busy." She dove toward the main formation alone. One tiny fighter against thousands of capital ships. They didn't even bother shooting at her at first. She was too small to matter. That was their mistake. Wove through the fleet, getting so close to the big ships that their own weapons couldn't track her without hitting each other. She fired missiles at sensor arrays and communication dishes. She didn't destroy ships, but she blinded them and deafened them. By the time they realized what was happening, 6 of their ships had lost all external sensors. They were flying blind, dependent on other ships to guide them, and was already gone, vanishing into the black. Meanwhile, on a captured human cargo ship, interrogators questioned the surviving crew. The ship had been transporting supplies when it was caught between 2 fleets. They wanted information about human military capabilities. The human captain, a woman named, sat calmly in the interrogation room despite her injuries. The officer across from her was named, a senior intelligence analyst. "Your species is prolonging the inevitable," said. "We will conquer all your colonies. We will reach Earth. Surrender now and many lives will be saved." Laughed. It hurt her broken ribs to laugh, but she did it anyway. "You really don't understand, do you?" "Understand what?" "You evolved on a peaceful world," explained. "Your species had no major predators. You developed civilization without large-scale warfare. Then you went to space and conquered other species that were even more peaceful than you. You've never fought anyone who fought back effectively." His face showed confusion, and humans are different. "Humans spent 10,000 years killing each other," said. "We had an ice age that nearly destroyed us, so we learned to survive in impossible conditions. We had diseases that killed millions, so we learned medicine. We had wars that lasted generations, so we learned strategy. We've been preparing for war since we lived in caves." "That doesn't make you superior," argued. "It makes you violent and dangerous." "It makes us survivors," corrected. "Do you know how many different strategies humans have documented for warfare? We've counted over 2,000 different tactical approaches, and that's just the ones we wrote down. How many strategies do they use?" Was quiet for a moment. 12 primary battle strategies. They have served us well for 300 years. 12, repeated. "We have 2,000, and every battle we fight with you, we learn your patterns. We adapt. We create new strategies specifically to counter yours. You fight the same way every time. We never fight the same way twice." The interrogation ended shortly after. Sent a report to War Prime that night. In it, she warned that humans were not like any enemy they had ever faced. The report was filed and ignored. On Earth, in the hidden laboratories beneath the Arctic, scientist Wu put the finishing touches on a new weapon system. It was called a gravity mine, and it was based on human theoretical physics combined with alien technology. Test number 47, Wu announced to her team, activating mine. They deployed the mine in a test chamber that simulated space. When activated, the mine created a small artificial gravity well, like a miniature black hole. Anything within 100 meters was pulled toward it with crushing force. Test successful, Wu said with satisfaction. These will surprise they've never seen gravitational weapons before. Their ships aren't designed to escape that kind of pull. Her assistant, a young engineer, looked worried. Dr. Wu, if we deploy these around Earth, won't they be dangerous to our own ships too? That's why we're also designing countermeasures, Wu explained. Our ships will know where the mines are, the won't. It's not about having a better weapon. It's about knowing the battlefield better than your enemy. Back in space, Commander's fleet finally retreated to New Colony's orbital defenses. Of his 30 ships, only 12 remained, but the fleet had lost over 500 vessels. They won the battle, but the victory cost them dearly. As the fleet moved to occupy the colony, sent a final message to all human forces in the area. To anyone listening, we held them for 3 days. We destroyed 500 of their ships with 30 of ours. The odds were against us, but we made them pay. That's all humans can do, make them pay for every meter. Earth Command, the colony is yours to evacuate. We bought you the time. On Earth, Ambassador watched the battle reports with Marshal Sung. Each colony was falling, but slowly. Each defense was buying precious time. How long until the Ghost Fleet is ready? Asked. 4 weeks, Sung replied. Admiral Jin says they can accelerate production, but they won't compromise quality. The ships need to be perfect. And they'll reach Earth in 5 weeks if they maintain current speed, Sung said. It's going to be close. What if they get here before we're ready? Sung smiled that dangerous smile again. Then we activate the moon. I haven't shown you that yet, have I? Shook his head. The moon isn't just a hiding place for the Ghost Fleet, Sung explained. It's a weapon, the largest weapon humanity has ever built. If they arrive early, they're going to learn that humans weaponize everything, including celestial bodies. In the flagship, Warprime reviewed casualty reports with growing unease. His empire had started the war with 50,000 ships. In 2 months, they'd lost 3,000. The humans had lost 6 colonies, but they destroyed 3,000 vessels in the process. The math was troubling. If this rate continued, they would lose their entire fleet before conquering Earth. Send orders to all fleets, commanded. Increase speed. We take Earth in 1 month. No more delays. We end this quickly before the humans can prepare further. His officers rushed to relay the orders. None of them noticed the small human probe hiding in the debris field outside their ship. The probe recorded its orders and transmitted them back to Earth using tight beam communication. Earth Command received the message within hours. They were coming fast. The final battle would happen in 4 weeks. The race was on. Would the Ghost Fleet be ready in time? Or would Earth face the largest invasion fleet in galactic history with only 200 known warships? Fortune was still turning, but no one knew which way it would fall. The fleet arrived at Earth's solar system like a swarm of locusts blotting out the stars. 30,000 warships, the largest military force ever assembled by the Empire. Every ship was armed and ready for the final battle. Every crew member knew this would be the end of the war. Warprime stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Fist, looking at the tactical display. The display showed the inner solar system. Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars. The planets hung in space like targets waiting to be claimed. "Where are the human ships?" demanded. His sensor officer checked the readings. "Sir, I'm detecting nothing. The system appears empty. Impossible, said. Earth has 200 warships. They must be hiding somewhere. Scan everything. Check every planet, every moon, every asteroid. The fleet spread out, sensors at maximum range. They searched for an hour, then 2 hours. They found nothing. This is a trick, decided. The humans are trying to ambush us. All ships maintain defensive formation, advance slowly toward Earth. The massive fleet began moving toward the blue planet in the distance. Earth looked so peaceful from space. White clouds swirled over blue oceans. The lights of cities sparkled on the night side. It looked defenseless. That's when the Ghost Fleet, 5,000 human warships, appeared out of nowhere, materializing around the fleet like ghosts becoming solid. The sensors screamed warnings. The tactical displays lit up with red threat markers. On the bridge of the Eternal Fist, every officer froze in shock. Hal whispered, "How do they have 5,000 ships?" On the human flagship Soul's Revenge, Admiral Jin smiled. He was an old man now, 60 years old, but his eyes were sharp and bright. This was the moment he'd been preparing for his entire career. "All ships, this is Admiral Jin," he broadcast to the entire Ghost Fleet. "Attack pattern Dragon Storm. Show them why you don't wake a sleeping dragon." The human fleet attacked. They moved like nothing they had ever seen. Each ship operated independently, but together they created a pattern that looked like chaos but was actually carefully coordinated disorder. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Captain Han commanded a destroyer called the Fury. His ship dove through the formation, weaving between the massive enemy vessels like a needle through cloth. Behind him, he deployed gravity mines. The mines activated as ships passed near them. Suddenly, massive artificial gravity wells appeared in space. Cruisers were pulled toward the mines, their engines unable to compensate for the gravitational force. Ships collided with each other, crushing hulls together like tin cans. "Gravity mines are working as designed," Han reported. "Can't adapt fast enough." Wing Commander led a squadron of atmospheric fighters that shouldn't have been able to function in space. But humans had modified them anyway, adding small fusion cores and magnetic shield generators. The fighters were fast and deadly. Squadron dove toward a battleship. The battleship's point defense systems tried to shoot them down, but the fighters moved too fast and too erratically. They split up, coming at the battleship from 12 different directions. "Target the bridge," ordered. "Magnetic pulse missiles on my mark." The fighters launched their missiles in perfect synchronization. 12 missiles struck the battleship at once, each one releasing an electromagnetic pulse that fried every electronic system. The massive ship went dark, dead in space. "Battleship neutralized," reported, moving to next target. All across the battlefield, the pattern repeated. Human ships used tactics they had never seen. Gravity mines that trapped enemy vessels. Stealth systems that made ships invisible until they were already firing. Weapons that targeted electronics instead of hulls. And most importantly, humans that refused to follow any predictable pattern. Warprime watched his fleet fall apart. All ships form defensive sphere, concentrate fire on the human flagship. But when ships tried to form defensive positions, they bunched up. And bunched up ships were perfect targets for the human weapons. On Soul's Revenge, Admiral Jin saw the fleet trying to regroup. "Deploy the special package," he ordered. Deep in the ship's hold, a massive missile was loaded into a launch tube. This wasn't a normal missile. It was a prototype weapon that combined human engineering with theoretical physics, so advanced that most scientists thought it was impossible. "Special package away," the weapons officer reported. The missile streaked toward the center of the formation. It didn't explode when it reached them. Instead, it activated a quantum field generator. Suddenly, a sphere of distorted space appeared among the ships. Inside the sphere, time moved slower. Ships trying to escape found themselves moving at half speed. Their weapons fired in slow motion. Their communications lagged. Human ships outside the sphere attacked the trapped with devastating efficiency. It was like shooting fish in a barrel. "All ships retreat to the outer system," ordered desperately. But his order came too late for thousands of his vessels. That's when the moon opened. Every human had known the moon was humanity's satellite. What they didn't know was that it had been hollowed out and converted into the largest weapons platform ever created. Massive doors opened on the lunar surface, revealing weapons arrays that had been hidden for 50 years. Weapons officer sat in the moon's command center, 3 kilometers beneath the lunar surface. Around her, hundreds of technicians manned stations controlling the base's defenses. "All weapons charged," reported. "Orbital mass drivers ready to fire." "Fire," Admiral Jin ordered from his flagship. The mass drivers fired. These weapons didn't use explosives. They used pure kinetic energy. Tungsten rods, each one weighing 10 tons, were accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. When they hit, they released energy equivalent to small nuclear weapons. The rods struck the flagship first. The Eternal Fist was 3 kilometers long and heavily armored. The armor didn't matter. The tungsten rod punched through the ship like a bullet through paper. The flagship exploded, breaking into 3 large pieces that tumbled away dead. War Prime didn't even have time to scream. "Target destroyed," reported calmly, selecting next targets. The mass drivers fired again and again. Each shot destroyed or crippled a capital ship. The weapons were unstoppable. There was no defense against a projectile moving that fast. The fleet broke. Ships that had fought bravely for months suddenly turned and ran. They jumped to hyperspace in random directions, abandoning their formations, abandoning their mission, abandoning their empire's honor. In 3 hours, the battle was over. The Empire had arrived with 30,000 ships. Only 8,000 escaped. 22,000 warships were destroyed or captured. Millions of soldiers died in those 3 hours. The human fleet lost 400 ships, 400 out of 5,000. On the bridge of Soul's Revenge, Admiral Jin looked at the tactical display showing the fleeing ships. His officers cheered and celebrated around him, but Jin just felt tired. "Send a message to the retreating fleet," he ordered. "Tell them to take a message back to their empire. Tell them that Earth is willing to negotiate peace. But tell them that if they ever attack humanity again, we won't be as merciful next time." One of his officers looked confused. "Merciful, sir. We killed millions of them." "We could have killed all of them," Jin replied. "We let 8,000 ships escape. That was mercy. That was us showing restraint. I want them to understand that. I want them to tell their leaders that humans could have ended the Empire today, but we chose not to. Maybe that will make them think twice before starting another war." On Earth, people poured into the streets, celebrating victory. They didn't know about the secret fleet. They didn't know about the weapons hidden in the moon. All they knew was that Earth had been attacked by an empire of 50,000 ships, and somehow humanity had won. In the ruins of the fleet, survivors tried to understand what had happened. How had the humans hidden 5,000 ships? How had they developed such advanced weapons? How had they won when all the numbers said they should have lost? The answer was simple but hard for them to accept. Fortune favors the prepared. They had trusted in their numbers and their strength. The humans had trusted in preparation and paranoia. For 50 years, since first contact with aliens, humanity had been building a secret military force. Just in case someone decided to attack them. They had thought they needed fortune to win. They were wrong. Humans had made their own fortune through decades of careful planning. And now the war was over. They had been defeated. The galaxy would remember this day for generations. The day a primitive species showed the galaxy What happens when you declare war on humans without fortune on your side? 6 months after the Battle of Earth, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The chamber was packed. Every species in the galaxy wanted to witness what would happen to the Empire after their catastrophic defeat. Ambassador stood in his usual place on the council floor. He looked different now, more confident, more respected. The other ambassadors no longer dismissed him as representing a primitive species. Now they feared what humanity could do. Across from stood the former War Prime. He was in chains now, guarded by council security. His 4 arms were bound. His head was lowered in shame. The mighty warrior who had declared war so confidently was now a prisoner facing judgment. The crystalline elder who served as the council's judge spoke in musical tones. War Prime, you stand accused of initiating an unprovoked war against the human species. You destroyed 6 human colonies. You killed millions of civilians. What do you say to these charges? His voice was hollow. The charges are accurate, but I did not expect. I could not have known. Could not have known what? The elder asked. That humans were so strong, finished. Our intelligence said they had 200 ships. How could we know they had thousands more hidden away? How could we know their technology was so advanced? You could have asked, said quietly. You could have negotiated. You could have accepted our apology and our compensation for the accident. Instead, you chose war. You chose conquest. And now your empire has paid the price. Fleet Admiral Sung stepped forward to present the official casualty report. She was in full military dress, her uniform decorated with medals. She held a data tablet that showed the war's statistics. Human casualties, Sung read aloud. 50,000 military personnel killed, 200,000 civilians killed in the colony attacks. Our infrastructure was heavily damaged. 6 colony worlds were occupied or destroyed. The council members murmured. The numbers were terrible. Casualties, Sung continued. 42,000 warships destroyed, 8 million military personnel killed. The military fleet is reduced from 50,000 ships to 8,000 operational vessels. Their empire is no longer a major galactic power. The murmuring grew louder. Some species seemed satisfied with losses. Others looked worried. If humans could do this to what could they do to anyone else? The question before this council, the elder said, is what justice looks like. They started this war. They committed atrocities, but they have been severely punished. What more should be done? Looked at for a long moment. 6 months ago, this had threatened to conquer Earth. He had laughed at humanity's small fleet. He had declared that humans would kneel before the Empire. Now was broken. His empire was crippled. His people were facing economic collapse and potential starvation because their military had consumed so many resources. Humanity requests the following, announced. First, the Empire must pay reparations to the families of those killed. Second, they must rebuild the colonies they destroyed. Third, they must agree to a peace treaty that includes mutual defense and trade agreements. And fourth, they must educate their people about what happened here, so future generations understand the cost of unnecessary war. The council members looked surprised. Many had expected humans to demand harsher punishment. Some species had expected Earth to demand territory or even to invade the. That's all, one ambassador asked, after what they did to you. Director stepped forward. She had been analyzing psychology for months. The Empire was built on military strength, she explained. They measured their worth by the size of their fleet. We've already destroyed most of that fleet. We've already broken their pride. If we destroy them completely, we just create an enemy that will seek revenge in 50 or 100 years. But if we show mercy now, if we help them rebuild, we create the possibility of peace. Another ambassador spoke up. But won't other species see this mercy as weakness? Won't they think humans are soft? Marshal Sung laughed. It was a hard sound. Let me be clear about something. We showed restraint at Earth. We let 8,000 ships escape when we could have destroyed them all. We chose not to invade even though their capital was defenseless. This wasn't weakness. This was us showing that we're strong enough to be merciful. She paused, letting her words sink in. But make no mistake, we have 5,000 warships now. We're building more every day. The moon base that destroyed the flagship, it's still operational. The weapons systems we developed for this war, we're not dismantling them. Any species that thinks human mercy means human weakness is welcome to test us. We'll be happy to teach the same lesson we taught the. The chamber fell silent. The elder turned to, War Prime, do you accept these terms? Looked up, tears streaming down his face. In culture, shedding tears was a sign of deep shame. I accept, he whispered. And I apologize to the humans, to my own people, to the galaxy. I was arrogant. I thought our numbers made us invincible. I learned that fortune favors the prepared, not the arrogant. The council voted. Humanity's terms were accepted. Would face trial for his crimes against his own people. The Empire would pay reparations and rebuild. And most importantly, the war was officially over. After the session ended, and Sung walked through the station's observation deck, they looked out at the stars, at the vast galaxy that now knew Earth's name. Do you think they learned their lesson? Asked. Some of them did, Sung replied. Others will need more convincing, but that's fine, we're ready for that now. Back on Earth, life slowly returned to normal. The celebration had faded. Now came the hard work of rebuilding and moving forward. In a classroom in Seoul, a teacher named stood before her students. One of them, a young girl named, raised her hand. Teacher, why did they attack us? Asked. Thought carefully about how to answer. They attacked us because they thought we were weak, she said. They looked at our small fleet and assumed we couldn't defend ourselves. They made the mistake of judging us by what they could see rather than what we were capable of. But we were prepared, another student said. We had the secret fleet. Yes, agreed. For 50 years our leaders prepared for the possibility of war. They built ships in secret. They developed new weapons. They trained soldiers. Some people thought it was paranoid or wasteful. But when they attacked, that preparation saved us. Is that what fortune means? Asked, being prepared. Smiled. There's an old saying, fortune favors the bold, but I think fortune favors the prepared. They were bold when they declared war. They had 50,000 ships and thought that was enough. But they weren't prepared for an enemy that had been planning for this possibility for decades. We were prepared. That's why we won. In orbit around Earth, the Ghost Fleet remained active. The ships that had saved humanity now patrolled the solar system and protected the colonies. They were a reminder to everyone, both human and alien, that Earth was no longer defenseless. Admiral Jin and Marshal Sung met one last time on the moon base. They stood in the observation room, looking at the weapons arrays that had destroyed the flagship. Should we dismantle this? Jin asked. The war is over. Do we still need weapons this powerful? Sung was quiet for a moment. Keep them, she finally said. Not because we want to use them, but because having them prevents us from needing to use them. The galaxy knows what we're capable of now. That knowledge keeps us safe. You think someone else will try? Jin asked. Maybe, Sung admitted. Or maybe not. Maybe the defeat will convince everyone to leave humanity alone. But I'd rather be prepared and not need it than need it and not be prepared. Jin nodded. Fortune favors the prepared. Exactly, Sung said. Around Earth's solar system, construction continued. The shipyards that had built the Ghost Fleet didn't shut down. They kept building. Not for war, but for defense, for exploration, for the future. Humanity had learned a lesson too. They learned that the galaxy was dangerous. They learned that peace was precious but couldn't be taken for granted. They learned that sometimes, the only way to maintain peace was to be so strong that no one dared disturb it. The war, as it came to be known, changed the galaxy. The empire never recovered its former glory. They became a minor power, focused on rebuilding rather than conquering. Other aggressive species reconsidered their plans when they looked at the example. And humanity. Humanity became known as the species you didn't attack without extremely good reason. The species that looked weak but was secretly strong. The species that prepared for disasters that might never come. They were the species that understood fortune wasn't something you hoped for. It was something you made. In the Galactic Council, whenever new species joined, they were always told the story of the war. They were told about the empire that had 50,000 ships and lost to a species with 200 visible warships. They were told about the hidden fleet and the weapons in the moon. And they were told the lesson. If you want to declare war on humans, you'll need more than fortune. You'll need a miracle. Because fortune favors the bold, yes, but fortune bows to the prepared. And humanity was always prepared. The end of the war was not the end of human expansion into the galaxy. It was the beginning. With their military strength proven, humans could negotiate from a position of respect rather than weakness. They opened new trade routes. They established new colonies. They became one of the major powers in galactic politics. But they never forgot the lesson of the war. They never let their guard down. The shipyards kept building. The weapons stayed operational. The training never stopped. Because the humans who had survived ice ages and plagues and 10,000 years of warfare knew one simple truth. Peace is wonderful, but preparation for war is what makes peace possible. And so the Ghost Fleet patrolled. The moon base stood ready, and humanity watched the stars with both hope and caution. Fortune favors the prepared, and humanity would always be prepared. Always.